for all of the cats out there and all of the wives out there. This is for you guys. It's called Calico. The cat in my lap is my wife. She's one of those calicos with slight soft fur that barely brushes you when you touch it. Her tongue leaves a floral, sort of salty smell where she licks. She curls up in my lap. I stroke her back. The last time I saw my wife in her human body, we ate breakfast. We went out for it to attain a feeling of attainment, to treat ourselves. We walked toward the cafe on the corner where we always ate, but it was closed. She sighed, realizing that what she heard was true, that it went out of business, that a corporate hotshot breakfast place would be taking its space. We walked a little ways to the grocery store, bought a loaf of bread and cheese, which we passed back and forth, tearing chunks with our teeth and pulling off pieces of brie. It was delicious. Now that she's a cat, my wife refuses to eat. She doesn't seem interested in the cornflakes I pour into a bowl and put on the floor or the milk beside it. The cornflakes are the closest thing to cat kibble I can think of because we don't have cat kibble because we don't have a cat. Until now, I guess, I do. I have my wife. While we were walking and eating, we looked up at the clouds and wondered if they would ever come down to live among us. We assigned superpowers to ourselves, dreaming of mind reading and seeing everything around us all at once, a full 360 degrees instead of less than 180. We imagined a life free of excessive emotional needs, free from the burden of sleep. My wife now sleeps in her underwear drawer. After a few nights of this, I feel so lonely in our big bed, so small and spacious at the same time that I reach in and pull her out of the drawer, nestle her onto my chest, and silently wish her to stay. She does. The next day we play a game of Scrabble, and I'm embarrassed that she almost wins. She and I always played before competitively, so I wasn't surprised when I got out the box and she jumped on the table, pawing at pieces of the alphabet, sitting as upright as possible on her back legs in order to get above and move the letters around. Obviously, she couldn't pick up the pieces, so once she pawed together a word, I helped her get it over the half-inch obstacle of the playing board on the table by picking up the tile and putting it down exactly where she pointed with her nose. Her O-L-I-V-E intersected with my B-L-I-N-D. I followed with E and D, then put down her D-E-A-R. She licked my thumb. I start to think that maybe this is okay, that we could be okay like this. That is, until every sip of air I take turns into a sneeze. A powerful one, like a whipping sea breeze, not weak. My wife, sensitive, keeps away. I don't know what to say to her, other than click my tongue until she returns, at least briefly, but then the sneezes come back. Tonight, the sneezing and the itching and eye-watering is so bad I keep her awake. She paces back and forth on the other side of the bedroom door while I sit with red allergic eyes that make me look mad. I want to hold her. I want to stroke her feather soft fur, but I can't. There's a pause in the sneeze storm and I look at her, desperate to see her eyes looking back at me, those little marbles. I rub my face with the back of my hand, then watch her walk to the front door where she stops, then pause at the gap between the wood and the floor. She turns her cat head back to glance at me, and I'm not sure what she's thinking, but I have to believe that she knows what's best. When I open the door, she leaves, quietly. I close it behind me and go to sleep.
Ow!
So this one is a little more rooted in reality, maybe, although I don't know anything about reality. But this is a character that I've gotten to spend some time with recently that I don't know, she's like close to my heart. But I think there's going to be more about her, and she just got a lot of life in her, so we're going to find out where it goes. But this is her first interaction with the world. It's called Millie and the Bike Thief. In order to catch the bike thief, Millie decides to put the helmet she used to wear on her porch's top step. The bike thief will come back for it, she thinks. A smart bike thief knows that it needs a helmet. When Millie says it, of course, Millie is referring to the bike thief. She doesn't want to give the bike thief the honor of assigning it a gendered pronoun or a typical non-gendered pronoun so as to avoid denigrating any individual belonging to either of the gendered or non-gendered pronouns. Instead, she calls the bike thief what it is, which is something other than human. This, at least, is how Millie feels. The helmet is not impressive. It belonged to Millie's brother in middle school and then to Millie once she took it from her parents' garage upon leaving for college, managing to hold on to it through undergrad, several years into her post-grad life, and now she works through grad school. She is impressed with herself for this, for maintaining high standards and responsibility for her head safety, despite the many irresponsible choices concerning her head and other parts of her body that she has consciously made. After years of use in a variety of primary school sports and activities, the helmet lost its plastic outer shell, making it look less like a helmet and more like a misshapen piece of styrofoam with frayed nylon dangling beneath. Still, Millie wore it faithfully, committed to the cause of avoiding concussive or any degree of brain injury. Millie was so faithful to the safety of her school that, for instance, the night her bicycle was stolen, she carried the helmet inside, tucked under her arm, bringing it to bed and falling asleep with it nestled against her chest. She woke up the next morning 2 minutes before her alarm, feeling less surprised at the presence of the helmet than at the vacant feeling she had within the core of her body. Something was missing, she knew. All she could feel was without. Now, Millie places the helmet on the top step and waits. She sits inside, counting her fingers, one by one, then again. Gratefully, Millie never fails to reach the number 10. When the bike thief doesn't take the helmet bait, Millie brings the helmet in and leaves it on the less cluttered side of the living room. She considers another approach, deciding that another thing the bike thief might want is a pineapple upside-down cake. Who can keep from resisting pineapple when inverted in a cake? Millie gags. Nobody she knows, which is why she reasons the bike thief will love it. So, Millie buys a cake. It takes not much, just more time to walk to the store, what with the theft of her bike, and when she returns, the cake seems less obviously pineapple and more noticeably upside down. It doesn't help that Millie holds it far from her face, almost dropping it so as to minimize contact with pineapple, to which Millie remembers she is allergic. She starts sneezing and is unable to stop until she reaches her porch and leaves it there, retreating inside to get some fresh non-pineapple air. Through the window, she watches the cake as it sits. Millie also sits. She imagines who the bike thief might be, wondering if maybe, after all, she knows who it is. It must be someone with no sense of family, Millie thinks. The main source of sadness in losing her bike comes from the fact that it was a gift from her dad when she graduated high school. Actually, Millie acknowledges while watching and knocking on the glass to scare off a squirrel that sniffs at the cake. This is a secondary source of sadness, with the primary being the fact that, although it was a generous gift, it wasn't quite the bike she hoped for. The bike, to be honest, was ugly. It was not what Millie wanted, and yet it was because her dad was so earnest in giving it and pointing out its impressive features and trying to make her as happy as she could be. And in this way she was happy because he wanted so much happiness for her, and she grew to like the bike, even in its unattractiveness. By the time it was stolen, really, she had taken such a liking to the bike that one might even call it love. Of course, she thinks now, resting her forehead on the window glass, once I love it, it's gone. I should have just hated it all along. But now there's nothing she can do other than love her bike from afar and hate the bike thief, and also catch the bike thief, of course. She doesn't know how many minutes pass, but enough minutes pass for Millie to fall asleep and be jolted upright by the sound of a nudge against the glass and some loud lip smacks. Hello, Millie says, flitting her eyes open like a moth. The bike thief, she cries out. I've caught. She starts to yell but stops. She sees that it's the neighbor's next door kid, John, eating the pineapple upside down cake with his hands, acting as a sort of forklift. John, Millie says, what are you doing? Are you the one who stole my bike? He apparently can't hear her through the glass, so he keeps eating. Millie steps outside. John, she says, what are you doing? Are you the one who stole my bike? Huh? He looks up annoyed as if Millie had just interrupted some important business. Millie sighs. I said, she says, and stops, distracted, watching him. How could you possibly enjoy cake made of pineapple? John looks confused and shrugs. How could you not? Some cake falls from his fingers. Millie sneezes. It's easy, she says. I'm allergic. Then what are you doing, leaving pineapple cake sitting around your place like this? Am I not meant to eat it? You aren't meant to eat it, Millie says. But, John insists, isn't there some TV show where women leave fresh pies in their windows and they're for whoever happens to come by? Are you talking about Andy Griffith? I don't know, am I? Millie sneezes. John keeps eating. Millie stares in disbelief and notices a bundle of glossy papers, what looks like magazines, fall out from under John's armpit and onto the floor of the porch. What's that? She asks. What's what? John snaps, with his face still in the cake. He quickly shoves more chunks into his mouth than he can possibly chew and swallow. That's, he says through the cake chunks, that's, just the mail. It's the mail, he manages to get out with a little cough. Millie bends to scoop up the magazines, noticing the cover showing several curvy women in curvy poses, wearing few articles of clothing. What are these? Millie asks again, pulling them closer. Nothing, John says, with his cheeks still squirrel-full and now a violet shade of red. It's my dad's. I came out to get the mail, and then that's when I saw the cake, so I just brought them with me. The mail, he says, as if to prevent Millie from asking any questions. He somehow miraculously shoves more cake into his mouth. Oh, okay, Millie nods slowly. She's curious about John's claim that the magazine has to do with his dad, considering her knowledge that his dad has not lived in the same house as John and his mom for a few years now. Listen, John, I don't care what you do or don't have to do with these magazines. I'm not interested in your sexual fantasies. All I'm trying to do is catch my bike thief, so any clues help. That's all I'm trying to do. John blinks a few times. Yeah, that makes sense, he says. I'm sorry your bike was stolen. I wish I could help you. I'll keep an eye out, no doubt. He scratches the front of his jeans and starts to walk off. Thanks, John, Millie sighs, watching him go. Just let me know if you have any leads. John nods as he goes. Oh yeah, Millie? He turns around and Millie's heart perks up. Yes, she asks. He points sheepishly at the little that remains of the pineapple upside down cake. Can I have the rest? Millie sighs. Sure, John, sure. Considering herself to be no farther than when she began, Millie takes a moment to feel defeated. Once the moment has passed, she considers the evidence she has garnered thus far. The bike thief is neither interested in her helmet nor in cake. Perhaps Millie thinks the porn magazine is actually connected to the bike thief. Maybe she should follow that lead. Millie turns to the internet and prints off the most lewd picture she can find without downloading a virus. She starts with boudoir, suggestions of sexual body parts, and shifts into full exposure, taking the printouts and taping them to her windows so they face out at passerby. For a few hours, the effect is slight. Millie is disheartened. She prints more pictures, blowing up one particularly suggestive photo of both a man and a woman engaged in the act, as one college professor evasively called it, and printing it square by square so that when lined up just right, a life-size recreation is made. After several hours, when this doesn't seem to be enough, Millie decides to utilize her own sexual appeal. Surely the bike thief will have to respond to that. Summoning up faint recollections of the one burlesque event she attended in the murky days of pre-college partying, Millie puts on her laciest lingerie and most easily removable clothes. She starts playing a sultry playlist and positions herself between the two window panes as if she were on stage. At this point in the day, the sky dims outside, making Millie more visible to those on the street. A few dog walkers pause, double-take, then stare at the undressing figure before them. Parents usher their children past, putting hands on the kids' temples like blinders, hurriedly pointing to something in the near distance, such as a dog or tree, saying, "Look, honey, you see that up there?" so as to distract from what their little eyes might see, and otherwise become aware of something they shouldn't be seeing just yet. Millie, once entirely undressed, holds a pose that she considers to be a good one, with her arms up to the left, with her hips slightly bowing in the opposite direction as if she were enjoying a nice side stretch. It looks as though a few of the bowdlerizing parents try to convince the stopped passerby, mostly men, to keep walking. Millie observes this and isn't sure what to think. What if the bike thief is among them, but is ushered past before she finds out? That would defeat the whole purpose, Millie thinks, and so she swings her arms down by her sides and marches out the front door. "Hey," she says, "nobody leaves until I find my bike thief." The parents with children shudder at the fully undressed woman before them and give up their attempts to do anything about it, hurrying off to their respective homes. A few solitary adults remain on the lawn. "Your bike thief?" one man calls out, stepping around a vibrant patch of weeds at the side of the alleyway. "I've stolen a bike," he says. "What?" Millie asks, hope rising in her throat. "You stole my bike?" He stammers. "Your bike, yes, that was me." He pauses to swallow and his eyes dart shyly around. I'm sorry." "It's okay," Millie says, feeling a surprising capacity to forgive this person, this man who seems to be her bike thief. "Where is my bike now?" He looks at her body, then immediately looks at the ground. "I can tell you, but I need a second to remember. I need to sit down." He glances at the grass below him in the alleyway. The other adults at this point have sizzled down to just a dog sniffing around with no apparent owner and a primarily unaware homeless man who always makes a slow circuit along the street, but sleeps a few blocks away. "You can come inside if you'd like," Millie says, feeling a warmth she didn't expect to feel toward her bike thief. He's her bike thief, after all. But he doesn't look like she imagined. She didn't imagine anyone, really, but now that she sees this man with his round, protruding ears and slightly bowed head, she feels something like friendship, which leads to her being slightly embarrassed to be standing entirely exposed in front of him. "Okay, yeah, why don't you come in?" she says, and he follows her through the front door. Millie wraps a blanket around herself. She sticks out her hand, saying, "Hi, I'm Millie." The man receives her hand in his. "I'm David." "Nice to meet you." "Nice to meet you." "Would you like some coffee?" Millie asks. "Why, yes," David says, "that would be great." "How about some pineapple upside-down cake?" "No, thank you," David says, shaking his head. "I don't like cake." "Okay, good," Millie answers, "because I don't have any." Millie laughs, then David laughs. Millie makes coffee. The two talk about bikes that work and don't work, bikes that are stolen and then returned. And that's how Millie found her bike thief.